This is episode 3, and I am Taylor Whalen, and I will be discussing the STEM with LM program with Shawn Montgomery, Program Communication Specialist. Thanks for talking with me today, Shawn.
It's good to see you. Thanks for having me.
All right, to start, we're going to start way at the beginning.
Yeah.
Please tell me.
The very beginning,
Yes, the very beginning.
All right, let's
where
get
you
there.
grew up and your childhood.
Yeah, so I'm a Hollywood kid. I'm a LA baby. Grew up in Burbank, California, right on the border of Hollywood and the Hollywood Hills, and played a lot of ball and grew up with a lot of family, cousins, and stuff like that. And we back then things were a little bit simpler, so we spent a lot of time together. And and then from there I took off and joined the military after. Lots of fun in between that time from like high school.
Sure.
Yeah. When I say I used to like bounce on the Hollywood Strip at the Whiskey and the Roxy.
Oh man.
The Palladium, Pantages. Like I used to do I was in the part of the music scene for a while and really enjoyed that, but it was not a sustainable life. It was
fun for the time.
It was fun for the time. And honestly, it got boring, Yeah, you would think it wouldn't, but it really did get boring. The music all started to sound the same. The people were all the same. Like, the politics were the same. Everything it just was not enough variety for me, which you would think, it just wasn't a part of me like that way. And I didn't play music. I was up there making sure no one was doing anything silly.
Roughhousing.
Yeah, I'd have to, squash some heads here and there every once in a while. But other than that, we had a great time. So once I got done with that, I decided it was probably time to grow up a little bit and realized sitting on traffic in the 405 freeway that I needed to get out of this town. And probably the quickest way to do that would be the United States Army.
Sure.
So, yeah, I had to actually go through quite a bit to get into the service because I've always been a fairly large person. So I had to actually, I didn't realize back then, I didn't know anything about the military, but I had thought, I'm doing you a favor here,
right? You join and you're good.
No, they're like, we have standards and weight. And so I had to drop quite a few pounds and get my head on straight. And I had great mentors along the way, lots of great former soldiers, veterans and lots of just good mentors on the way. So yeah, that's what I did. And then I decided to pop into the military.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah.
Just pop in.
Yeah, just pop in. Well, in transition, I had decided when I decided I was going to grow up a little bit, I decided to go to UCLA and get my EMT license. They had a great program, the Daniel Freeman program at UCLA, one of the top EMT schools in the country. And I just happened to, live close to there. So that's where I went. And I found my passion. When you finally find it, you're like, oh my gosh, I love this stuff. And a lot of it came naturally, just body systems and trauma and just all, lots of excitement like I was used to, but now I'm helping people.
Yeah.
And so that was a great job, great career. And then it transitioned into the military and I had a wonderful time there. Loved my military service. I really thought I was going to do 20 and do the whole thing. And life had other plans, which rhymes with wife has other plans. So
I can understand that.
But I really enjoyed that time in the military. I served with some amazing people, an amazing mission, and you get to meet a lot of different people. Right. You learn a lot of things about a lot of different people. And then you go to places that are nothing like this wonderful country of ours. And when you do that, it really puts things into perspective and really makes you thankful for what we actually have here. Because 3,000 miles away, things aren't rocking and rolling. They're not doing podcasts,
right.
In an air-conditioned interpretive center.
Yeah.
Talking about how's your life, That's not what they're doing.
So you served in the military, and then you also were a firefighter in the Grand Junction Fire Department. So could you talk a little bit about your roles and how they helped shape your current position? You were kind of going into that.
Yeah.
A little more.
Yeah. It's, everybody asks, well, how did you get to where you are now? And I have no idea. So I got out of the military and I was miserable. I was in college. I was using my GI Bill. Here I am, 28 years old at the time. I'm the oldest guy in the room, right? I'm already starting to have gray hair from Iraq, I came home with some gray hair from that trip. And my poor wife, she was just I was thriving in the military, and then I come here and I'm kind of a fish out of water. I don't fit in anywhere. I don't necessarily agree with everything that everybody's doing. And then I just came home from, one of the worst places in the world, and I was just really lost. And so my wife, who's literally an angel, I swear, I don't know how she does it, but she actually ended up finding me a paramedic school, because when you get out of the service and you're a combat medic, you get out with your EMT. Well, I already was an EMT, right? So I already had that going into the service, which was great because it made schooling really easy. But when I got out, I was basically a paramedic, but I didn't have the certification. So I had to go to paramedic school. And so she found me a paramedic school up in Eagle Vale at Colorado Mountain College. And she's like, just go do this. And maybe you can get on the fire department. I'm like, fire? I don't want to join the fire department. It's hot in there. You got to wear all those heavy clothes. Like, again, this is not I just got back from the hottest place in the world.
That's the last
wearing
thing
all
you
that
want to
equipment. Anyway, wonderful job again. I was blessed enough to get into an amazing recruiting class with 16 other individuals. It was the first time the Grand Junction Fire Department decided to take over its emergency medical services. And I was a part of that crew. Life-changing experience. Not only paramedic school, but then getting, lucky enough to get hired and going through that process. It was exactly what I needed. It was that team environment that I needed again. That I don't like doing anything by myself. Seriously, nothing. I am a team player. Like, if the dishes need to be done, I need help, right? You do the, I mean, we're cooking dinner. I need 6 people in the kitchen. If I'm doing a project in the shop, I don't get it done unless I have help. And
so
that's
it's like your wife knew.
Yeah, she did.
Exactly.
Well, I've known her since I was 13. So so she's known me a long time. Yeah. So no, it was great to do that. And, but the fire department, I had some injuries from Iraq that I wasn't able to wear my helmet anymore, which obviously is a challenge. I just finished my degree online using my GI Bill, because I dropped out of like traditional school. I just couldn't. It just wasn't my style. Plus, I was a dad, and here I am, I'm 30 years old now or whatever, 28, 30, and so it just wasn't my vibe. And then but I finished while I was on the fire department, which was difficult because you're running calls at 2:00 in the morning in the middle of an exam that you decided to. Right. So there was a lot of emails back and forth to the teachers, which were the professors, but they were great. And so I did that and finished my degree. And then our public information officer, well, he had been there a long time. Jeez, Mike Page, probably, 30 years, maybe something like that. Long time. He was a firefighter and then transitioned into the public information role. And so he was doing it before the time of social media and big internet stuff. I mean, he was very much a personal relationship. He's the kind of guy that had the reporter's phone number in his phone and had, he ended up marrying one of the writers, writers at the newspaper. And they're having a wonderful retirement. It's just, that's the way it was, old school. And for me, here I am chomping at the bit to elevate or, bring up to, to the times, the fire department's social media and just different ways of promoting it for a lot of different reasons. Number one, to tell the story of the fire department. You see the fire trucks coming in and out. Maybe you see them at the grocery store, shopping together, and the fire trucks out there. And that if you call 911, they're going to come. But there's a lot of cool stories behind the scenes that are going on there. And that was my perspective is, no one's going to be able to tell this story better than me because I just got done doing it. Yeah. And I was very in touch with some of those little small details that I felt like everyone needed to know, especially when it came down to like voting season and that we need a new fire station. And that's we got to generate some votes for that kind of stuff. And the reason why those weren't successful before is those stories weren't really being told. So we told the story and things and I just really loved it. And then that actually took me into the job that connects me to here. So I was at the fire department and I was kind of doing that for a couple of years as the PIO and really had a great time. In fact, I had an amazing fire chief who let me do other things. So I was actually a PIO for the state of Colorado and was involved in some of those, big things like the Gold King mine spill and just some crazy thing. You're like, oh my, seeing crisis communication at this level, I was like, it was like taking on a massive wave back in the day. Like and hopefully you get back to the surface and not drown, Ended up doing some things like that and really started to feel like, man, this is kind of my jam. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy telling stories. I think that I have the ability to kind of just look at it from a different way or make things a little bit lighter or tell a story in a different way that maybe just generate, especially from someone like me and my background. I'm not your typical, traditional student and traditional person, So I don't know. I just kind of looked at it from that and it seems to be working so far. A friend of mine was a owner of a home healthcare company that focused on former uranium workers. And he was actually looking to stand up. And he very successful. He did a great job. Took care of a lot of well-deserving people that we'll get into, I know, later here. But I got to see the worker side of it first. He took me out to lunch and said, hey, I need to build a marketing team. I know you just got your marketing degree. And I'm like, okay. So, marketing communications degree. What do you think about helping me build this marketing team? And I'm like, sure, I can do that. I have no idea. I read a book.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I just Google it.
Figure it out on the job.
Yeah, thank goodness for YouTube, right? No, it was, but really kind of sick of the saying now, but it really was. My foundation was fake it till you make it. Yeah. Just act like you've been there before. And a lot of times that worked out. Not all the time. And the cool part about that is I really was able to identify where I was vulnerable and what I needed to study because I wasn't done learning. I'm still not done learning. None of us are. I hope not, So I was able to go out and be a part of the worker side of this, this business. Before, I didn't even know anything about DOE or legacy. I had no clue, none. Yeah, I was on the worker side, working with the EOICPA program and trying to get people signed up. And that's how the home healthcare made money and all that. But that was my first connection there. He actually ended up selling the business. Good for him, right? But then it just changed. It turned a little more corporate. It wasn't, this is my friend, still a friend. And I was like, it's just not for me. So I started looking for other things. And the VA job opened up as the communications director. So VA Western Colorado, all of Western Colorado and Eastern Utah was a big job. We got a hospital here in town and heard great things about the director that you would work for. And I was like, well, I could tell that story too. So went and applied for that job and had a great time doing that. Obviously was hired and worked for one of my favorite leaders of all time. His name's Michael Kilmer. He runs the VA in Denver now, the big one. He took me under his wing and really taught me how to perform in the federal service. That's what I really appreciated from him is just how to not only work with different types of people, but that at that level, you're learning about, just different funding vehicles and just all kinds of different things when it comes down to like the minutia of federal work. And I paid attention to that and it was great. I don't know. Do you have another question? Do I need to pause
my
here?
next one is what brought you to the Office of Legacy Management. So
yeah, first of all, great question.
Yeah.
and let me tell you why. It's all Ken Cry's fault.
Okay.
So Ken Cry is one of our site managers here. I think he does several other things. He's also a part of our STEM with LM team. But Ken was working here beforehand, and he and I are friends. In fact, funny story, Ken and I met when I was on the fire department. We met actually at the business incubator for the first time ever. So super weird, right? Just across this way here. We were in a small business class. Ken will remember all the name. I don't remember all the names. I wasn't probably paying attention. Ken pays attention, he's a very focused individual. But so we met and then we stayed connected through just small things. We just had similar things in common. Our kids went to school together. They were buds. So, just very loosely connected. Yeah. And somehow he reached out to me. I'm sure he remembers, I don't, but basically like, hey man, we're increasing our communications team and we have a spot opening up here in Grand Junction. You should apply for it. It's a federal job. And so I did. The reason why I did is because I knew my director from Grand Junction, who is now in Denver, was going to Denver. And I told him, I said, if you leave me here, I'm going to go look for a new job. And not because I didn't love the job, but boy, that VA job is really tough. lots going on there, lots to pay attention to. You really got to be in it, and you need to be in it with, you got to have a team. And I knew that team was kind of going away, going different directions. Plus, I knew when he got to Denver, he had a list. And a lot of people on that list were on the team that I was going to still be staying on. So we were going to start losing some of our star team. So I was like, I'm going to pop shoot out of here quick before and he was wonderful about it. But I still actually hear about it, leaving him in Grand Junction for a whole 2 months or whatever it was before he went to Denver. Oh, he was great. That's how I applied. And at the time, Kristen Holmes was newly hired as our CEO, or Communications, Education, and Outreach team leader. She was our lead, and interviewed with her and Doc and Tanya. I'll never forget that, because we were chatting military, and Doc and I were going back and forth about Air Force and Army. And then I found out he was originally Army. I didn't know if you guys knew that, but I love it. I keep looking over at David. He can't talk. He's just shaking his head like, yep. Yeah. So I always give Doc. So if there anybody on that's listening to this podcast, Doc was Army first before he was Air Force, just so you know. But yeah, that brought me here. Things have really catapulted since we got here. But getting here and learning this job, so having the worker side and understanding that personal connection to the people who did so much for this country, sacrificed so much, and then we're going to chat about that, I know, a little bit later, but I had that personal connection, and then now I'm like standing at the place they worked at. Yeah. Or I'm standing at the place where all of the things that made them, sick, or the things that they loved doing every single day, like when you talk to some of the Rocky Flats individuals and stuff, what I'm talking about. Yeah. I mean, it is literally, it's visceral, right? Like, I'm getting chills talking about, like, you talk to Murph up in Rocky Flats. Yeah. I mean, these guys made my job personal, right? And then I come here, and you're at the places where they used to work at, or you're dealing with the areas, or you're at the disposal cell that where all the things that they used to do are now buried way beneath the ground, and now our job is to make sure it doesn't go anywhere and hurt anybody else. Monitor that stuff. So that was different for me, because now I'm just dealing with kind of places and things, and then I realized, oh no, we're still with the people. It's very much, but I felt like when I first got here, that was and maybe because we didn't have a very big marketing team, or a communications team, I should say. It wasn't really marketing, but the communications team. It's been called several different things, but Patrick Benson, Karen Edson, those were the two primary look at what we do here. And there's two people essentially that were, and Patrick's not even a traditional communications guy. He's like a historian. And he's brilliant, right? And Karen, and then Chris coming from Hanford, and it was just small, right? So we had to divide and conquer. And what I realized back then was, I've been here over 4 years now. It went by so fast. We would provide some ideas or some thoughts or some guidance, but very rarely were we in the weeds on things, because there were so many things, and we couldn't really divert and go and laser in on certain things because our team was so small. We were just kind of there to manage the awesome contracting team, but also we had our own projects too. And so anyway, and then now this team is really under David. Kristen is still with us, and she's got her new focus. And then David came in, and we started hiring more people. And now we got, Gwen has just joined the team. Kristen Yost, she just joined the team out in St. Louis. And you start gathering these resources, and you start figuring out, okay, now we can really start telling these stories and start really making some headway. And that's, that was where the STEM with LM program kicked off. Thanks to our leader, obviously. This was Carmelo's idea. He's like, hey, I want you guys to get out into your communities and spend a few hours telling kiddos about being an engineer or a scientist. Go dig in the dirt, throw some color on something. Go hang out at your, kiddo school, or your grandkid or your niece's nephew. Go into the communities, set up a pop-up tent and tell our story. Very, he understood, and obviously still does, how much is going on here. But, he provided an avenue with some reward there to get out and just start telling not only the LM story, but tell just the STEM career story. So that's kind of how that started. That's how it started.
So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to go in a little bit deeper into the STEM with LM programs. For more information on LM's programs, check out our webpage at energy.gov/LM and click on programs. So we talked about how you got to LM, and you currently serve as Program Communications Specialist. So can you describe what your current roles and responsibilities are?
Yeah, good question. This question actually comes up anytime I have an old friend or hang out with somebody I haven't seen in a while.
What do you do?
What is it you say you do around here, Shawn? I don't really know. I will tell you that I work with some amazing people, and that's the reason why I'm still here. But as a program communications specialist, I have, as being a Fed, I'm like federal oversight, right? I'm of our contracting team focused on communications and outreach. With that, I oversee where we're sitting right now, the Atomic Legacy Cabin, which is on the National Registry. And just like the Smithsonian and others, as you know. And we have an amazing team that operates the cabin, tells a wonderful story about the cabin. Every time I walk in here, it's new to me, there's so much stuff. Every time I listen to Ashton or Richie tell the story, now Trent coming on board, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. I should know that stuff. With this, again, federal oversight, there's a lot of things to know, right? And the good part is I don't plan on going anywhere, so I have a lot of time to learn this stuff, and that's what's great about having this team that I work with. Another thing that I do which is our primary talk here, is STEM with LM. And I kind of touched on that before the break, where it was originally Carmelo's idea to get technical folks out into the classroom, the kiddos' classroom. We're partnering with colleges and universities, all kinds of just go do some other stuff. Go tell our story to whether it's your kiddo or at a college or wherever. And then my primary focus before STEM with LM has been the Navajo Nation. When I first got here, that was my 4 sites on the nation were my primary focus, and really just trying to figure out how we could do a better job of interacting with the community there, the communities there, the leaders of the nation down there, because there's a lot of different types of leaders, a little bit more complex than I would just say like the traditional U.S. Trying to incorporate how to tell our story, because it's a delicate story, necessary to be told, and there's a lot of people that want to make sure you tell it right and tell the whole story, which working for the federal government sometimes, can be difficult. So really my favorite part of when I first got here working that job is just trying to figure out how to communicate on the Navajo Nation, being someone that is non-native and primarily with a team, and we'll talk about that more later too, but a team that was traditionally non-native down there. So that was my laser focus when I first got here, was Navajo Nation, with our contracting team, Jen Harris, who has been with me since day one. She got here a little bit before I did on the contracting side. Is still here, thank God. So I know. So, but yeah, that's my primary function, and several other little duties, but other duties as assigned.
So STEM is something that has become big in the last 10, 20 years within education. So for those who are not totally aware of what STEM is, can you describe what the STEM with LM program is and why we are focusing on it?
Yeah, I would tell you probably before, maybe a year ago, I don't even know if I could really answer that question. Even though I was put in charge, to oversee and help grow the program, I didn't come from a STEM background.
Sure.
I still don't. My degrees are on the communication side of things. So I think what we started figuring out with STEM fields, right, is that it doesn't matter who you are. I don't care if you're DOE, LM. I don't care if you're an 8th grade school teacher. It doesn't matter if you're working at a national lab. It doesn't matter if you're working in an oil rig on the ocean. I think what we've all started to figure out, and why you see this explosion of STEM focus, is we don't have enough in the pipeline. We don't have enough individuals excited about STEM careers to take care of the jobs we currently have. Not to mention all of the green energy, climate change stuff, all of that, all of this new tech, these wonderful people are developing at our national labs and throughout the country, throughout the world, honestly, partnering with other countries to come up with better ways to do better for Mother Earth, to do better for, we're responsible to each other as humans.
Right.
We got a lot to do here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, who's going to do it?
Yeah.
Shawn, we need you to focus on getting more kiddos excited about the STEM careers. And that's what resonated for me. It wasn't, I got to get some kiddo excited about putting stuff in a beaker or wearing a lab coat or, you know what I mean? Or doing, that's not me. But you put it on me like that, like, hey, we have a critical mode here we need some recruiting done, and we have to start making this interesting. Let me tell you right now, I didn't grow up enjoying science. And I mean, I found my love for biology and like emergency medicine in my 20s. In high school, I did not care about that stuff. And so I really do look at things like, whoa, if this excites me now, I mean, I'm 47 now, but not in my head. My body might say that, but in my head, I'm still a kid. And if I find these things enjoyable, or I think about what would excite me to get excited about a STEM career, or at least exploring more. So the STEM with LM program has really taken off into that aspect of leading the way with some new ideas and some new strategies and some new ways to think about STEM and new ways to present this to not only young kids, because that's we have focuses from elementary, middle, and high school. But we got to get them before that, though. We got to get them in that middle school, elementary school range, messing around with some stuff that doesn't scare them, right?
Right.
You put a bunch of equations or the periodic table in front of me, and I'm out. Mm-hmm. But if I put a water table thing in front of you and the different watercolors and I all these processes, or the team, we just opened up a new box of owl pellets, right? Where like, really? Owls do this? Like, and I'm picking through an owl pellet
and finding all the bones
and all. I had no idea this was a thing. I just learned, I'm not kidding, I just learned this yesterday. We did this upstairs. It was like Christmas.
It's crazy. Yeah.
We opened up a box of things because we're looking to develop new ideas. And here's the cool part about the STEM with LM program. I always say this. It's the fun side of the business. Yeah. Okay. Our mission, our LTS mission for LM is primary, right? It's critical. It's crucial. Protect human health and the environment. Make sure the bad stuff doesn't go anywhere. Doesn't hurt anybody else ever. That's our job, right? At least that's how I kind of whittle it down in my brain, my non-technical brain. But STEM with LM is everywhere. Like STEM, it doesn't have to be something, we don't have to talk about uranium. We don't have to talk about radioactivity. You know what I mean? We don't have to we can talk about, because there are owls on some of our sites, right? Yeah. There are just different, it's everything, so we can explore it and find ways to connect with people who we may never, traditionally may not connect with outside of maybe something that's a little bit contentious sometimes with an old site or, an old worker or family or, something like that, where there's a lot going on there. When we flip it to the fun side of the business, like we're just going to focus on the STEM side of educating individuals to get them excited to come into this field and carry on this. I mean, we have this thing, LM is going to be around a lot longer than you and I are going to be here. And we've got to start thinking about how we're going to fill that pipeline. And that's where the STEM with LM program comes in. And that's where our team really focuses on now, is how to keep it interesting.
I like that you called it recruiting, like recruiting these kids into STEM. I like that a lot. So the U.S. government is aiming now to bring more women into STEM fields, because there's definitely a lack of that right now. So can you talk about how the programming in STEM with LM is helping to shed light on STEM fields for girls and young women?
Good question. I'll tell you, full disclosure, it's not my primary focus, right? I've always been around strong women my whole life. I've got an amazing mother. My wife is an angel, and she is literally a rock star. She could drive a battleship if she had to. I've been around some amazing women in my life. I've served with some amazing women in my life. I'm just drawn to strong, powerful women in that way. You know what I mean? In that way. I guess it just naturally, that kind of stuff comes to me as a, leaders at the top are women for me. some of my best leaders have been women. It wasn't something that I was like, hey, we have to focus on girls and do this. Because if you go up on the second floor of our office here, it's primarily women. I think LM is 50-50, maybe lots of strong, impressive, powerful women here. Really, the focus of that, a lot of times, the STEM with LM program does not happen without the technical staff going out and performing. We give them the tools to do this. And obviously, they already know this stuff.
Right.
They're subject matter experts in this stuff. But we're like the bumpers that you blow up in the gutters at the bowling alley for the kiddos, right?
Yeah.
So they don't fall into the gutter when you go to a bowling party for your kiddo or whoever. We're those bumpers, right? And they get the whole lane to do whatever they want. In fact, they tell us how they want to do certain things, and then we just make it happen. And some of them need a little more, some of them don't. Some of them are just, I mean, they could do what we do right now. They're just amazing. Our female scientists and engineers and technical staff going out into the field. Our communications staff members, they are presenting these ideas, which I think is the most important part, right? You see an impressive, confident, well-educated, let's just say person. You see that person, they're talking about something that interests you. And you know, if you have any type of thought, if you're present at all, you know that one day you're going to be in that person's shoes one day, potentially. I mean, you're going to be doing what they're doing. You're going to at least be that age one day, right?
Right.
And at some point, whether it's middle school, and obviously there's a lot of kids way before that, but like, I want to be that person. Yeah. Well, a lot of times what they're looking at is a strong, powerful woman talking as a subject matter expert of something that they are interested in. And next thing you know, boom, they take their plate. If I could craft the story, that is how I would craft the story. We present ideas, exciting ideas to young individuals to hopefully get them excited about doing what we're doing. A lot of times I find myself focusing on how is that going to look on the Navajo Nation, right? Because if it works down there, it'll work throughout the country. Are we meeting all of our markers there? Are we diverse? Are we inclusive? Do we have the right people sitting at the table making these decisions? A lot of the times we find out that we are focused on the right areas, because we know that if we focus there, it'll work pretty much anywhere. And when it comes down to focusing on girls, getting them, because traditionally, I always say not in LM, but traditionally women are underrepresented in STEM careers. With us focusing on the Navajo Nation, with us focusing on certain areas and things and people down there, it just happens to kind of naturally be hitting those target demographics from a to use like a marketing
term.
Yeah. That's our target demographic. Are we hitting that mark? Yep. Obviously you don't want to, that's not the way we tell the story, but from a professional perspective, that's how we develop those things. If we're hitting those marks, then I know that if we go into Ohio or come here in Grand Junction, wherever, we're going to be successful.
So you brought up Navajo Nation, and you helped to establish the Miss Navajo Nation event.
Well, that's okay.
So can you just tell me a little bit more about working with our tribal partners and how we involve STEM?
How long is this podcast? That was a universe thing. I'll just, without getting too hippity-dippity on the podcast here. Okay, that was, whether you believe in God or the universe, whatever. That was a right place, right time. These are the types of things that make you a believer in something bigger than yourself, right? I was down in the Navajo Nation working, and I should backtrack. Let me backtrack.
Go ahead.
So we had some challenges on the Navajo Nation for a long time. And a lot of the reasons why is that we just weren't telling the story in the right way. We just weren't connecting in the right way. A lot of times, being the federal government, you come with a massive backpack load. It says federal government, and as a federal employee, man, that's really hard sometimes to carry, because I didn't do those things.
Right.
It's not, but it's who you work for. It's what you do. These are. And I will tell you, especially, I've never been anywhere that more people in this place, on both sides of the house, the contracting side and the federal side, think about that a lot. Yes. It's very much top of mind. And they work really hard to try to beat that stigma, prove it wrong, at least do their part. And And that's really all you can do is your part. You can't speak for every other federal agency, but you're doing your part. And one of the ways was that is I just didn't think we had the right mixture of personalities and people, cultural diversity. We didn't have the cake mix wasn't right to bake a good cake. It was okay. It made cake, but we could do it better. And again, with the work of Jen Harris and many others, including those that came before us and those that we worked with who are no longer working with us now, they all provided massive input on how to get things right. Or again, that could always change, right? We are one bad communications, bad outreach, one misunderstanding away from that delicate situation not being what it is today. I take that very seriously. I will tell you that's something that I am always thinking about, because the way things are right now and the working relationship we have down there right now, we're very blessed. We're blessed for a lot of reasons, and a lot of it has to do is we just have the right people down in the Window Rock office doing it. And the main reason why, and I'll just tell you, the main reason why, it's because they are working for their people. We have 3 amazing Navajo, strong, wonderful female individuals down there crushing it. And the reason why is personal to them. As much as I want to be doing what they're doing, as much as I want to tell you I'm with you, I'll do whatever. I am you. I don't look like you. I don't sound like you. We don't have the same understandings. We don't have the, all of that. We're just different. And I think what we did and what we were able to do is recognize that and then get the right people in there to help us do a better job. And that's seriously what it is. So when you say, you it had nothing to do with me other than supporting the team that has come together down there with, what do you need? The answer is yes. Okay, fine. You got it. Shawn, we need it. Yes, ma'am. You got it. Whatever you need. Again, I have my job as federal oversight, but really my main job is to support the people that are doing the big work down there. And again, that's something I do take very serious. When it comes down to how did the Miss Navajo Nation happen? Well, Kayla Baya, who's one of our outreach individuals down in the Window Rock office, I was down there visiting one day, again, just to learn, more about not only my colleagues, but the area. I've never been to Window Rock, Arizona. I mean, I've driven through the Navajo Nation before from Phoenix or whatever to get to Grand Junction. And, you always hear stories about the reservation. And I served with many natives, from all different tribes. And boy, they didn't get really into the minutia of certain things. So when you start to really understand, you really understand that you don't have any idea. And you better find the people that do and then support those people. Especially if you're in a position to do that, then that's what you should be doing. If you try to insert your ego or try to take accolades or try to put a feather in your cap, get out of here. You're in the wrong spot. You're in the wrong spot at LM, period. But in general, you're not going to be successful. So that's what we were, able to do. With Kayla said, "Hey, let's go have lunch, and then let's go through the Navajo Nation Museum." I was like, "Okay, great. Of course, I want to know about this, because they have some really, really cool." Cool is obviously not the best word, but it's very interesting. Lots of history. Their traditional stories are not really. I mean, for us, we're just different, right? But they go into detail about the stories, and they have mountains named after these, just like a lot of different things. I mean, the closest thing we have on our side of things, I would say ours as Eastern European individuals that came over. I always get tongue tied on this, making sure I'm not insulting anybody. That's not what I'm looking to do here. But like we have Santa Claus or something like that, right? Or something, and I don't mean to diminish that by any means, but that is not what the stories and how the Navajo Nation came to be and its people. You start learning about that, and you're like, oh, that's why there's so many cool things, and. So yeah, that's how that happened. I went to the museum and started, to learn some of the background and their culture and just understand more. And the other thing too, and just a quick little diversion off of this is, I served with a lot of natives, and natives per capita are the highest population of service members in this country.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's very high number of native individuals serve their country, serve America. Boy, that's impressive to me for a lot of reasons.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to get into on this, but it's impressive as heck to me, and they love their country. You know, they arguably saved us from World War II because of their language. And
there's an exhibit up in the cabin
yeah,
about the Navajo Code Talkers.
Yeah, and so again, these are all things just as a veteran, not native, but I'm a veteran, so I have some connection. I can empathize one toe in the water of the massive ocean that it is, that empathy is. Of at least I can figure out ways to tell that story, right, as a non-native. So I do. Going into that, it was cool because they had a big display of veterans, Native American veterans. They were Navajo veterans that served. So of course I wanted to see that. Well, then Kayla was like, "Oh, do you want to see Miss Navajo Nation?" And I was like, "Okay, first of all, the only thing when I hear Miss blah 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 blah, I'm just thinking Miss America, Miss USA, whatever.
A pageant.
Yeah, a pageant, right? Miss Universe, like
yeah.
Bodybuilding stuff, and I had no idea. Sure. Yeah. And we're in a museum right now, so okay, how's this happening? She said, "Oh, her office is here." I was like, "Her office is here?" And so we went down like this side wing of the museum, and there was a reception area, and Miss Navajo Nation staff member was sitting out front, and Kayla went up, and we all had our masks on and stuff because it was still during COVID. And yeah, she said, "Oh, is Miss Navajo Nation in?" And she happened to be in the office. Again, one of those God things, universe things.
Fortuitous.
Yeah, she came out in her traditional clothing and beautiful crown, and wow, what an impressive woman, young woman. And it was while she was talking and telling us about what she does. She's the ambassador of goodwill, and she's actually part of their government. which is very similar to ours. They have a president, vice president, they have cabinet or chapter house. Very similar parallels. But she, Miss America is not a part of the United States government. Well, Miss Navajo Nation is. So anyway, I start hearing about her story, and I just have this wild idea, and I'm like, what if we do a STEM event in your honor? And just straight up from the hip, it was a left hook, right? Like, I don't know where it came from. I don't know why I said it. I was just in a creative mind, and just sometimes I just blurt stuff out, and hopefully most of the time it's appropriate.
Right.
So I did that, and she looked at me and said, "What do you mean?" And I told her about, the STEMsation events that we've partnered with she was familiar with STEMsation that the Navajo Nation puts on, a great team of individuals that do that. And I said, "Hey, what if we do it at your old high school alma mater?" And then I was like, "Well, why don't we do that a yearly event, because the office rotates every year, and we'll just go to the alma mater of the current Miss Navajo Nation and do a STEM event in her honor. And instead of just having like STEM booths, like a traditional STEM booth where you go and you mess around and you pour watercolor on something, or you feel something, or you put VR glasses, virtual reality glasses on now, all the things that they're doing at all these STEM events, why don't we incorporate traditional teachings? Like the things that she maybe had to do during her pageant run, right? Whether it was like bead making or cooking, or, sometimes it was harvesting an animal and field dressing an animal. I mean, real stuff. Like, it's more serious, and there's a lot more that goes into it. She wanted to do it. And the sad part was, with the former Miss Navajo Nation, we just, because of COVID and a lot of other restrictions and the school year, we just weren't able to pull it off. But she passed on that idea to the new one that just came in. We met with her and kind of had to represent the whole idea. And of course we were like, "Oh, maybe she's not going to be interested." And she was like, "Yep, let's do this. I love it. It's great." And so once that happened, honestly, I removed myself from the situation. And our team down there did everything. Our team down there just sent me emails. "Is this approved? This is what we're going to do. Can you make it?" Just letting me know what they need. And because again, Kayla, well, so does Jen, by the way. Jen is non-native, but Jen grew up in New Mexico. Her best friend was Navajo. Like, she's loosely affiliated. Let's just say, you know what I mean? Like, when you grow up that way, like, she understands, she has an awareness of the Navajo Nation. She's been around that for a lot of years. For me, not really, right? So it was run with it and whatever you need. I just think this is a great idea. I would love to see this. Let me know what you need. And that's how that happened. Kayla, Lily, Shine, Jen, they put that event together. As you see in the federal service, sometimes you get to take all the credit for it because they want to see federal staff, taxpayers want to see where those dollars are going. But really the work went to the contracting staff. That so far, that's the coolest thing that we've done. All kudos to them. I just get to get up there and take a picture sometimes, and
they make you look good.
They try. Those film editors, they got a lot of work to do there.
That's right.
So, yeah.
All right, we are going to take another break, and then we'll continue talking with Shawn here.
All right. Thanks.
For more information on LM sites, check out our webpage at energy.gov/LM and click on sites. We've talked about various programs. We've talked about your work with Navajo Nation, STEM with LM. Can you talk about how these programs support the LM mission?
I think they tell the story. That's the most important part of my job.
Mm-hmm.
Is how do you tell this massive story? How do you tell this story? How do you tell this secret? It used to be a secret story, right? So not a lot of people know about this. And I think that's the most important part is there's so much to it. There's so many avenues you can go down and you could rabbit hole on many different aspects of
there's
this
so many
story.
sites that each have an individual story. Yeah.
So many, right? And how those sites played such a different role. And again, there's the worker side of the story. I think there's the global story of what the mission was to, develop this technology before anybody else. That's the primary one. And then how that all took place and all of the sacrifice that went in to pulling that off. That's the primary job primary focus of my job is to tell a good story and tell it in a way that is palatable for lots of different audiences. And be ready to answer the hard questions and be ready to have a better answer. Do better. And I think that's, again, it's why I work here. That's what we do on a continuous basis, on a daily basis, from the technical side to the communication side to the finance side to everybody that works here is just trying to do it better than we've done it before. And I think we do a really good job of that. And so the programs that I get the privilege of overseeing is that's what we focus on. My motto is always find a way to yes. It has been that for a long time. And if the answer is not yes, it's definitely not no. You better just say it in a different way. So that's how the programs that I support tell the story of LM's mission. And we're in constant crafting mode of that. We've been talking about that all week since Kevin McCarthy's been here, who's an amazing, runs our interpretive centers. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention his name during this podcast because he helps me run the STEM with LM program. We're in the same seat in the same boat, rolling down the same river, trying to figure out how to get through it and how to do a really good job of that. And we have a lot of fun doing that, but it's challenging. He's a great person to work with. And the program would not be where it's at by any means if it wasn't for him. I will say he's my bumpers on the bowling lane. He makes sure I don't fall into the gutter. So he's amazing. And he's working on some more projects, and STEM with LM program will benefit those programs that he's working on right now too. So I'm excited. More to come on that.
Yeah. Why do you believe educating the public about LM sites' roles? We just talked about how there's a million different stories that you could tell within this, but within World War II and the Cold War, why is that important to educate people about that?
It seems like it happened so long ago, especially in our technology-driven, constant push of information. You forget about them. I mean, if you just look at how media runs, the media cycles, how many media cycles can we survive before this this thing goes dead, this, whatever topic it is, how many times, we come from this background, how do we stay relevant in this? And I think that is how, and why it's so important to tell this story, because so many things could be so different. I mean, you and I could be speaking German or Japanese right now. You want to just get real. Let's just get real. Okay. That didn't happen. And it was because of the work that this team did, this Manhattan Project team pulled off secretly. After all, I mean, it is massive. It could never happen in today's age with technology. No. There's no way. But they pulled it off. They were successful in their endeavors. with a lot of sacrifice and a lot of contention around the topic, of course, and there should be. This is not being braggadocious by any means, but back then, and I'm speaking back then, I'm not speaking for now, I'm speaking for back then, they were told, and this is the soldier coming out of me, you were told to execute a mission, and that mission was executed to a T. Done. Yep. Okay, so I think it's important that we tell that story, at least our part of that story, the whole story, not just, and everything that's happened since then, and to include LM's mission. You got to say why. Like if I'm at Mexican Hat on the Navajo Nation doing a project down there, and the community comes up and wonders what happened, or you're talking to a kiddo of why is this massive cell of this lake of rocks sitting here, and you're like, oh, because we mined uranium. Well, why'd you mine uranium? Well, so let's just start with the beginning, right? Because again, you end up working your way backwards, and that can be confusing. And that can also, and I think a lot of times it may have been confusing for a reason back then. I don't think we're doing that now, and I think we're doing a really good job of telling the right story now, even though some of the parts of the story are really hard to tell and have a lot of effect on people's emotions, and I totally understand that. But the story needs to be told the right way. I think that's the biggest part of making sure that we carry on the legacy of that mission, what World War II and the Cold War, what it was, and why we are where we are today, specific to LM, and why we have the mission we have.
The stories that we tell involve a lot of different communities across the country, and many of these, like you said, it's hard sometimes, but also there's communities that are very, very proud of the work that they did. And you brought up Rocky Flats, and it's with that community very apparent that they are very proud of the work. Can you talk about your experiences with different communities that feel that pride?
Yeah, I'm really, when I saw this question on the pre-notes when you were prepping me, which I really appreciate it. This one really hit home for me because this was something that I actually recognized when I worked for the home health care company that focused on former workers, and being a veteran of our military. A lot of the soldiers that came out of World War II went into the mines afterwards. So they continued their mission of supporting America's mission. But a lot of them weren't veterans as well. They didn't go in for whatever reason, or they weren't able to. But the sacrifices that they made, not personally to their health, they didn't really, we didn't have all of the information we have nowadays of what they really did for us. To me, they're veterans. And I think the EOIPA program is a way, the RICA program and some of the other things, federal legislation and programs that support them, just as you see through like VA benefits and stuff like that. Very similar, but you talk to these former workers in these communities, and very rarely they ever let you victimize them. Yeah. They made a conscious decision. Obviously, nobody knew about all the health stuff, but they knew that what they were doing was mission critical. It was saving America, and they were a part of that story, and they will forever be a part of that story. So, and that's what's cool about legacy management, is that we still have all the records, for that, and all those sites and all those people and we still have a lot of stories stored away for preservation, and they get pulled out for lots of different reasons. But I think that's one of the biggest things, is that these communities really participated in the preservation of their country, their way of life. And I think that's the story that really needs to be told sometimes. And then that's the story they want to be told. I want to speak for them. I'm very cautious in saying that, but anecdotally, with the individuals I've been around from the home healthcare side, and then also now being on the federal side, listening to community outreach events and participating, they are very proud, and they should be.
Yes, totally agree.
And they should be.
What are you most proud of
Whew.
when it comes to your work with LM?
What am I most proud of? I will say that the thing that I'm most proud of is the team that I get to work with. You can pick out a certain project or a certain event or a certain, program, but none of it would be able to be pulled off and executed at the level that it is without the team that I work with. That is the number one thing I'm most proud of. It's the one of the things I'm very protective of, now that I got a little bit of seasoning on the meat around here. Before, I didn't. I was really cautious. I was a little bit scared, but now that I have a little, I've been tendered up a little bit. I understand what we actually do around here now a little bit, which took a solid year. I protect the integrity of this team more than any. That's my biggest focus, is that everybody understands that if they're working on our team, they're representing LM, and they're representing their community, and they're representing themselves, but ultimately we're representing the mission of LM. And there's a lot of missions going on here, but our primary mission is protecting people and the environment. That is primary. And if I've got that as the foundation in someone that walks into this team day one, if I'm able to lock that in and let them know that they're not, this isn't rookie ball, you just didn't get drafted. This is seasoned. We're headed for the World Series on this team here and constantly trying to get there. There's a lot of expected from you. The biggest thing that I'm proud of is I really try hard to make sure that they know that from me, little old me, right? Like, my job is to, again, federal oversight is my primary job. I want to make sure that they know that they're supported. I've got their back, that we are aligned. Carmelo, talks about one team, one mission. You'll hear that. I'm sure you've heard about it a lot. And again, he did the same thing day one when I walked in here. That's the foundation. And if you don't operate like that from day one, then you probably don't belong here. And that really set a standard for me. And that's how we operate our team. And our team now takes that on. I'm a part of the team. That's how I really. That's the thing I'm most proud of, is I'll put this team up against any other team I've ever worked with. I'll put this team up against anybody in the federal government. But we have a great team, and I'm just stoked to be a part of it.
So the purpose of this podcast is the 20-year anniversary. So as we reflect on the past 20 years of the Office of Legacy Management, what do you personally look forward to seeing from LM in the next 20 years?
The number one thing is I just hope we don't ever lose focus of our mission. I think again, 20 years is a long time. Mm-hmm. But I think when you look at the legacy of and how long we're going to be here, 20 years, we're at the beginning of this.
Oh, it's a drop in the
right?
bucket.
We're going to, they're going to be talking about us as, old school back in the day. Taylor and Shawn and Dave were doing the podcast. Remember a podcast? Before we were doing this in outer space, and they had microphones in front of them and not just thinking of the words that were coming out. Like, wow. I could rabbit hole. I don't want to, but these are the things that they'll be talking about. And I just hope we continue the mission that we're doing. We stay relevant. We stay true. We stay trustworthy. We maintain our integrity. We don't get distracted from that. We answer the hard questions. Right? We don't shy away from those things. That's what people just want. You tell them the truth. People just want that, whether you work here or you don't, or you were a former worker, or you live next to a disposal cell, or you're, developing a new, whatever. They just give it to me straight without a lot of noise. And I hope we just stay true to our story and focused on our mission. I think if we do that, all of the things that come in the next 20 years are it's going to be massive, not only with more sites, but more programs, hopefully more people we can bring on to work at this great place. I just want to see it grow. And, when it's my time to hang it up and sit on a boat and fish and drink beer for the rest of the day, that I can look back and be proud of what we did, the team I was a part of. Changed a few lives, made an impact in a few lives, and hopefully filled the pipeline full of a bunch of kiddos that get excited about STEM.
That's right. Your recruiting events.
Yeah. So I don't want to read the newspaper when I retire. I just want to know that all that stuff's handled and there's a good group of people taking care of that, because I don't need to be worrying about that stuff. I worry about it now because we got a job to do, and that's filling that pipeline. So I just hope all of that's handled, and in the next 20 years, I won't be here. And if I am, then this podcast is going to sound a lot different. So yeah, I appreciate the time today. I think this is a great thing that you guys are doing, and really appreciate the prepping and the work that went into the podcast. You guys are great. So thanks for having me.
Well, we really appreciate you sitting down with us, and thank you for talking about STEM with LM, and join us for the next episode. Stay tuned for our final episode with Dr. Carmelo Melendez, LM's director, to discuss the past, present, and future of LM.